Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Autumn.
Morning.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Sarah. I think we're just waiting for Sophia and then we'll kick it off. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. Okay, well, I think we should kick things off. We will wait for Sophia to join us, but we can dive in the meantime. So, thanks everyone for joining us today. Joe, give me a high sign. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. All right. Thanks, gang. So, thanks again for joining. My name is Autumn Peñalosa. I am honored to be the global head of community for the Algorand Foundation for going on 3 years and change now. And gosh, what a new world it is this year. Very happy to be here with you all. We have gathered a really beautiful, passionate group of leaders today, leaders in the blockchain space, to discuss what I think is a very important topic this year, and that is what is the latest in VC funding and accelerator and global program opportunities for women devs and founders in our space. And by the way, this doesn't have to just apply to women, but we wanted to create one specific space and just highlight some amazing women leaders. And truly, all of this advice goes for any devs and founders in our space. So. Um, but giving a little love to the special women in our industry. And so each of these leaders is really spearheading what I think are truly compelling opportunities for devs and builders to get involved and to gain mentorship and really to gain exposure to career advancement and funding in the blockchain industry. And we couldn't be more excited to hear them share their initiatives with all of us today. So let's kick it off. We'll do just a brief intro for each speaker, hear a little bit about their background and what they're working on right now, and then we'll dive into some meatier questions. But Joanna, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your background in Web3, and what you are working on right now?
Yeah, great, guys. Thanks a million for having me on. Thanks, Autumn, and to the other speakers as well. Myself and Autumn, actually, we started quite close together back in 2021 with Algorand. Previous to that, I had been with Consensus and I worked with the marketing team there. And I also led out their grants program too. And really, what have I been focusing on for the last 2.5 3 years is really around like developers and startups and how do we create a good funnel of startups in Algorand. So last year or even the year before, we like launched hackathons, and we really wanted to put some more focus on a like a flagship hackathon. And we, with the launch of Build a Bull last year, we saw like nearly 2,000 registrants, and I think like just over 150 projects. We really wanted to double down on that, but also kind of like in keeping in that, like making sure that like the developers that were participating in the hackathons, that they really got that like nurturing before. And so also launching the boot camps last year. I think if my numbers are right, I think we got like somewhere over 7,000 like developers through that like funnel. So that was really good, and we're just really trying to, I guess, kind of improve those funnels at each time, like coming out of the boot camp and then the hackathons and the startups that we're seeing. And this year, we looked at the quality after the hackathon, and said, we really need to additional support. And so myself and Ram, we are looking into kind of like launching this kind of incubation period as well, where we really give some hands-on support to those startups like post hackathon. Um, and then also, we'll talk about it a bit later and kind of seeing like, after that hackathons incubator, like what accelerators we have as well. So Algorand will always kind of have one accelerator program that we run. But then there's also like a multitude of also of Web3 accelerators out there that there's no reason why startups can't, go for those programs too. And I can kind of tell you a little bit about those. So that's what I'm been focusing on. Very busy, but really, really excited. Can't believe it's May of 2024. But we're excited, to keep building and get things moving.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. I love hearing about your initiatives and just having had the chance to watch them grow over time and watching you and the team refine them. It's been really exciting, and I'm very excited to see all of us really focusing in on the dev audience this year. It's a nice moment. Let's move over to Sarah. Sarah Simeone, I'm super delighted to introduce you. Sarah, guys, is the CEO and founder of Nifties.io. Sarah, you're a founder yourself, and your
Yeah.
work has touched so many devs in a Web3 focused teams. Please tell us about yourself and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm actually speaking at the moment from sunny Manchester in the UK, so it's quite a beautiful day, and thank you for having me here. So I basically, after over 20 years experience in managing data strategies, I entered the blockchain space in 2016, 2017 through academic studies. I was actually doing a research on how machine learning and blockchain will have an impact on the future of data. And that basically brought me to this space. Back then, the most mature ecosystem was actually in Crypto Valley. Here in Europe, at least. And that's basically when I joined the CB Labs, Crypto Valley Labs, as a mentor for their accelerator. And I had the pleasure to work with a lot of amazing founders. Then I started, consulting business and mentoring more people in this space. And I decided to actually enter this space myself as a founder because I saw a gap in the market around the NFT space. And that's when we basically founded Nifties. And basically, after that, Nifties at the moment, by the way, is for those one who have not come to our website, we transform business processes through tokenization. It's quite innovative. We won a lot of awards. We worked very hard. But in the meantime, I love supporting other students and other entrepreneurs. And that's, when I joined as a co-chair of the startup working group, the Crypto Valley Association, because I still want to keep my ties with the Crypto Valley. It's such an amazing ecosystem. And I'm also on the board of the Media Institute for the course of blockchain for business and law. So I've got the pleasure of actually teaching this subject and to help and support a lot of blockchain developers or, future blockchain developers.
Amazing. I love it. So happy to have connected with you quite recently, actually, and I'm very much looking forward to uncovering what our organizations might continue to support each other in doing in the future. So thanks for that great intro. Let's see. I don't think that we have Sophia yet. Does that look, Joe, do you see her? I don't think we have Sophia yet. So I'm going to jump into a couple questions actually for Joe and Sarah then. So Joe, specifically for the current hackathon, what advice do you have? Because I've seen this question around the socials quite a bit. What advice do you have for devs or builders that would like to join a team and participate in a hackathon? Like how can they find a good match?
Yeah, we have a pretty active our Discord channel we had team formation sessions over the last 2 weeks. But we also encourage people to, go to the Discord and go to the general channel, or you can do it in the Change the Game channel either. Make a shout out, so, say, hey, listen, I'm a developer, or I have an idea, here's my idea. Anyone want to join my team? Make a shout out for who you're trying to bring on, if it's marketing, if it's a designer, whatever you might need. Make a call out, and see who bites. I know there's a lot of developers on there who are working away, so they might even be able to support, or yeah. Also, I'm in the process of getting a sheet together for people who have ideas, so that it can be kind of an evergreen place where people can go find teammates as well. So I'll be posting that on Discord in the coming days.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. And I'm happy to see, I think that we have Sophia here with us now. Yes, we do. So, introducing Sophia Zhao, please jump on and tell us a little bit about yourself, your recent work, and what your team is focusing on right now.
Hi, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. Sorry, my trip got a little delayed, so I'm joining a little late. I'm a senior principal at Alumni Ventures AI Fund, Web3 Fund, and the Women's Fund. My background is pretty humble Canadian business banking and working with CXOs and entrepreneurs on capital raising, go-to-market strategy and corporate development. I dove into the exciting space of Web3 in 2018 after graduating from Yale School of Management. My first foray was with Galaxy Digital on the advisory team, where I worked with a portfolio of ICO clients on their ICO initiatives. And that's where I experienced my first ever crypto winter. If you were around at that time, it was definitely not fun for neither the founders nor the investors. Then I spent 2 years on the exchange side, working with Huobi US and Crypto.com, working mostly with market makers, hedge funds, big trading volume clients, and I cover the Americas, Europe, Asia, and a bit of LATAM as well. And currently, I'm a full-time investor at Alumni Ventures, which we are the largest VC firm that give retail investors access to venture capital. What I'm looking at, I've been focused a lot more on AI now. As you know, last year when ChatGPT exploded, AI seemed to to be the diamond of the season. For those who watch Bridgerton, that was my Bridgerton reference. So I've been spending a lot more time looking at AI related startups and sometimes at the crossroad with Web3 as well. So really great to meet everyone. I look forward to sharing more with other speakers as well.
Thanks, Sophia. I love the Bridgerton reference. And that's so great to hear. You have a really incredible background. And while we have you sort of up on the mic, you mentioned AI. Definitely that's been such a huge trend in the last year and a half or so. Besides that, what other trends are you seeing in venture capital right now? What types of projects are having the most success raising funds? Would love to hear that from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the hottest areas in Web3 are deepen, anything related to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Restaking is huge, as well as tokenization of real world assets. So I feel like these four are the overarching themes that's been trending since I would say maybe Q4 last year to now. So any projects that are working in these four areas are definitely um, opening up conversation with investors, which is great. Um, I feel that uh, because now the market has sort of revived itself, we're seeing a lot more institutional adoption. We seem to have um, purged the bad vibes from our industry. I think capital is ready to dive in, and I think it's a great time to fundraise. And I'm seeing valuation getting very rosy for a lot of projects, which can be a good and also a not so great thing, because as a founder, I mean, it's excellent if you're raising a seed round and your valuation is over 100 millions of range. Um, that's fantastic. At the same time, you have to ask yourself, if my startup at the seed stage is worth over 100 million, what milestones must I hit in order to warrant a greater valuation in the next round? And when will that next round happen? Will that coincide with the bull market still, or will that coincide with the bear market? And if it's a bear market, who might be the investors that are willing to pay higher than the valuation of this round in the next round? So there's a lot of considerations on how do you put a value to your startup in the bull market? It's a very interesting topic. I don't think anyone has figured out that formula. But overall, I would say this is a great time to fundraise for startups, and I'm seeing um, a lot of interesting projects in this space.
Thanks, Sophia. That's really interesting advice, and it makes sense that process for how do you properly evaluate your startup within this burgeoning nascent space. It makes sense that it's not completely defined yet, but also nice to hear that we're sort of in a potentially more fruitful chapter. So thanks for that. So I want to jump over to Sarah, kind of on a related topic. Sarah, you have worked with numerous accelerator cohorts, actually, as everyone in this group has. What attributes or patterns are you seeing in the most successful teams that come out? I feel like that's really good insight for any accelerator project hopefuls at the moment. Like, is there a secret sauce to those that are able to launch successfully?
Well, that's a very good question, Autumn, because you know, I always say one thing, and this has become my motto. Alone you go fast, together you go further. And the best teams are those ones definitely that have got more than one founder and have got very highly committed teams, really. So that is definitely the secret sauce, and I'm pretty sure that investors like Sophia here would probably agree that team is the first thing that many investors are looking for. But then, of course, I mean, there is so much more than that, because there is commitment towards the project. You need to work hard. You need to make sure that you build a balanced team as well. Balanced, I mean, like, all sorts of personalities, backgrounds, skills, soft skills, and of course a commitment and resilience. And I think resilience is definitely the biggest trait that a founder and a co-founding team can have, and never give up. Because I mean, we've seen it now with the bear market for the past couple of years. It's been very difficult for a lot to raise, but still, there are a lot of startups like ourselves still here, trying to find revenue sources anywhere and everywhere, try to survive and try to basically, make the best and the most out of, these dark times. And of course, I mean, give ourselves a fair valuation, because I totally agree with Sophia, what she said before, right? 100 million valuation, amazing, but then what's going to happen next? And we have to be mindful of that. So yeah, I would probably say, like, teams, and then resilience, and building, be committed to what you promised on your white paper or your business plans.
So true. Resilience. It's just such a necessary ingredient to human survival and prosperity on every level, isn't it? That's really great advice all around. Thank you. So Joanna, back to you. I have a question. What do we need to know about the Frontech Accelerator? Can you give us any details?
Yeah, so Frontech Accelerator, it's an accelerator aimed at B2B startups that develop innovative solutions, like using either generative AI, metaverse, or Web3. So for instance, like under Web3, and they've got ID management, traceability, that kind of thing. I can share the link with you. But we are the technology partner, Algorand is, with Microsoft. And I guess kind of some questions, well, first off, the deadline to apply is May 26th. So this is a good time to, check it out, and check out the application. There's 120,000 investment, with between 5 and 15% equity taken. So that is the kind of details there. I think a couple of questions I had to look through. So it's, based out of Sardinia, and you don't need to be there full time, but they will require you to kind of, be there, I think, for small periods of that, and yeah, I guess kind of that's, anyone has any questions, I will try and answer them for you, if any of the listeners have any. So that's, this is an accelerator that we've partnered with, right? On the accelerator front, we just at the kind of tail end of the BFG program, Blockchain Founders Group. So we are in the process of reviewing some of those projects, and we are then now going to look to, I guess, kind of activate another kind of like Algorand accelerator, in the coming months as well. But again, as I said, on the introduction, there are many, Web3 accelerators, and I do. We are actually going to do an exercise of outlining, who those accelerators are, and then listing them, so that when the deadline dates are, and actually, putting it on the startups who are looking for accelerator support, and that these are the Web3 accelerators, and here are the deadlines that you can kind of, look into and see if they make sense for you to apply. So yeah.
Fantastic. I love hearing that. So there are numerous opportunities on the horizon. Really quickly, Joe, can you remind us of, for the Algorand Change the Game hackathon, the window is closing very soon, if I'm correct. Can you remind us the exact date, just so it's fresh in everyone's mind?
Sure, yeah. So I guess, there's a registration period, and obviously we're keeping the registration period open for just like over 2 weeks of the hacking. So while the hacking is going on, people can register, and then come June 3rd, we've moved it out by 2 or 3 days. Come June 3rd, we will open up the submission. So that's teams who have registered can now submit their project. And you'll see that on the Change the Game landing page. You'll see a big submit your project. And so that will kind of open up on June 3rd.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Okay, quick one back, lobbing one back to Sophia. On the topic of all of these great accelerators that are emerging not only for the Algorand ecosystem, but just across Web3, what advice do you have for founders that are pitching?
Yeah, thank you very much, Autumn. I was just going to make a comment to Joe's, overview and introduction of the accelerator. I would actually encourage founders to consider accelerator programs as an important choice to be with a group of founders that are also trying to make something happen. You're in a wonderful cohort that's supported by the organization, whether it's Algorand or anyone else. So you have that camaraderie, you have the support, and usually the accelerator will organize demo days, helping you make introduction to investors, really adding value from a resource perspective, as well as just making sure that you're okay, because being a founder could be very stressful. You're dedicating your life or your present life to this project that is your baby, and there's a lot of stress and anxiety. I mean, obviously accompanied with the opportunity, so it's great to be with people that are like-minded, that can support you, both from a resource perspective and also from a mental health perspective. So I think it's wonderful, and I really encourage founders to consider accelerator programs. In terms of advice, maybe I'll just take a woman-centric perspective. I've definitely come across women founders pitching their startups to me, and every time I come across a team of women founders, I am so excited because I don't get to see them often in Web3. And it's great to have diversity in our space, in our world. That's super important. I would say typically what I find is women founders are very humble compared to others. And it shows in the way they pitch, it shows in the way they ask. For example, they tend to ask for lower amount, lower amount that they're fundraising, as well as a lower valuation in general. I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but in general, I find women founders tend to ask for less, which I think it's good and not so good. And one, you're demonstrating that you have that capital efficiency mindset and MO, which is great because you can do more with less. And maybe a slightly lower valuation can help you close your round or can help you hit your milestone a lot more comfortably, perhaps, which is great. But at the same time, it's like, well, why don't you raise a little bit more so you have that cushion? Why don't you ask for the market valuation range, because that's what the market is willing to pay? So in terms of women founders, I would encourage you to reach out to other women VC. I know a lot of women VCs are super friendly, super helpful. It really is us helping each other and lifting each other up. So I encourage you to reach out to Women VC just to say, hey, I have a few specific questions. If it's easier for you to answer me over Telegram or LinkedIn or email, I still appreciate. Here are my questions. Or, do you mind if we speak very quickly for 15 minutes? If your ask is very specific and you're not asking a lot of time, I think a lot of people are willing to share their POV on the questions that you have in mind. So gather some intel from VCs, gather some intel from your network, asking reasonable asks is totally reasonable. Wow, that sounds like a tongue twister. Um, and also, when it comes to pitching, I think as VCs, we receive a ton of inbounds every day via various different channels, emails, LinkedIn, Telegram. I would recommend, if you can, do a bit of research to make sure that you get a warm intro to the VCs, or that do the research on that particular investor or the firm to make sure that, hey, their portfolio doesn't have a potentially conflicting startup that is comparable to you. As well as when you're doing outreach, I think keeping the message very concise and also just enough to read and not to overwhelm the readers is a good thing. So what I mean by concise is this is like the formula I usually share with founders. So, who I am, what am I building, key highlights, whether it's metrics, tech mode, or we came out of Google, or anything that's, highlights your project, differentiates you from others. Here's our deck, here's my calendar, look forward to speaking with you. So just super condensed, but you have like the key points so that it's easy for people to get what you're about, and you have the call to action. You make it easy for me to click on your link and make a booking. That is fantastic. And VCs are super busy, so I think it's totally fine if you want to follow up every 2 weeks, because I'm very guilty of this. I'll read something, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, let me get back to it. I start my email or I make the Telegram unread, and then I forget about it because my attention is pulled elsewhere. So it's totally fair game to follow up every 2 weeks or periodically that you feel is reasonable. Anyway, those are my advice. I'll take a pause and and stop here.
Sophia, that's such incredible advice. I'm really looking forward to seeing someone create a nice Twitter thread of key bullet insights from your answer just now. I think we'll have a lot of great insights from across this whole talk, but thank you so much for that. So on a related note, I want to jump over to Sarah. And Sarah, what do you see as the biggest current challenge for women founders in Web3 at the moment? And And this will kind of relate back to Sophia. How do you, from your perspective, think that VCs can continue to support the growth of great female entrepreneurs that are building, emerging technology projects?
I mean, that's such a great question, Autumn. And I think Sophia touched on some very, very interesting points. When I look at projects, Web3 projects, women, if they are present at all, they often hold social media and marketing roles. So we are basically missing women a lot in leadership positions, strategy, DevOps, and much more. And I can see that firsthand when I go and pitch, to multiple events, and I'm often the only female founder there. And, then everybody complains that there are no more female founders. And I've basically been thinking about the reasons why this happens. And I think there are multiple factors, but I can definitely mention a couple that I've been thinking over and over again. First of all, I think that, and this is something that Sophia touched on, there is a lack of culture or a grassroots education around the concept of money. There is almost a stigma around for women on how to make more and more money or even ask for money. This is actually quite an interesting, I don't know if it's cultural or if it is educational, if it comes from, the way we are raised, but there is definitely this is definitely a big, big point that hinders our growth as female founders. But I'm seeing new generations are definitely getting better at accessing, for instance, financial education, thanks to social media, TikTok being one of those with a lot of, trending hashtags. But I can see that from Gen X to Gen Z, right? Gen X, it's me on the cusp of the Gen Y. We were cash first. Millennials have seen that transition from cash to chip and pin. And then Gen Z are basically the generation of the contactless and even cashless, and they are much more used to online data and have access to more sophisticated digital financial expectations, right? And they're very familiar with analytics. Actually, I was there was an interesting research done by HSBC in the UK, showing that there was almost half of Gen Z respondents said that they were saving 20% or more of their monthly income, which has not happened before. And this actually is very important because it makes them less vulnerable to taking debt, basically. And this is like a brand new trend, and I really hope that this is going to become like a something that the status quo, and hopefully this is going to also help a lot of women to actually access more tech jobs in the future. But there is also, of course, another element, and it's the nature of the crypto space. It is very technical, is decorated with memes, and it often smells of male cologne. And this discourages a lot of women from the get-go to become part of this. There are definitely a lot of projects out there that welcome women, but they are far and few, really few and far between. So I just that is definitely one another issue. With the topic of how can VCs support women instead, that's something I ask myself daily. And I've been part myself of a lot of pitch competitions like female founders, and I stopped going. Because I see this as just marketing, campaigns for VCs just to actually be seen as those ones who are actually supporting women in this space. So I actually have more concrete suggestions for VCs. Reserve some spots in accelerators to women. Just do it. If you have if you can allocate 12 startups, investments to 12 startups, make sure that 2 of those at least are for female founders, and shout about it, because that is actually going to have a nice impact also on women applying for these accelerators. Another one is definitely sponsor more educational events with a concrete route to funding, not just like hey, come and pitch and come and meet us. us, because I mean, meeting is definitely not something that is going to actually convert into, a pitch, pitch or a serious conversation with investors. And I've seen that firsthand. And finally, I think is money is important, but route to VC is even more important. So I would like to see definitely more VCs collaborating, cross-collaborating with other VCs to promote their female founders in their portfolio. And because they are the ones who are normally struggling to get interest to VCs for follow-on rounds. It's not a question of not being able to connect. Female founders just do not play golf or hang around. We are committed to building and managing teams and moving forward, and we need to create awareness that, amongst the VCs, that we are operating in a different way. So yeah, this is my take.
Sarah, thank you. It's so interesting to hear your take alongside Sophia's, and it really gives me hope that with leaders like the both of you, that we will start to see a little bit of tide turning in women founders and women developers and builders finding more opportunities and more illuminated pathways to joining this industry, which, I think a lot of us are here for the transformative potential. And yeah, we need a broad spectrum of voices to really fully bring it all to light. So thanks for all of that. And actually, I wanted to just little plug here. Sarah, you were mentioning, reserving spots and accelerators for women-led teams. Well, we haven't done that, but I wanted to give a shout out to our Algorand Change the Game Hackathon. We have an additional $2,000 prize that'll be awarded to each of the women-led teams that land in the top 3 of the hackathon grand finale. So I know we haven't done a ton of promotion of that, but I'm really hoping that there's some amazing women-led teams that take advantage of that. So please spread the word. Awesome. So on this note, I wanted to go back. Joe, I know that you do you have anything else you wanted to share with us with regards to your upcoming programs or the Change the Game Hackathon?
Yeah, and just around, actually, I just wanted to give a big shout out to, like tireless kind of community members. I just see a couple of them there, like Camilo, and also Sarah Jane as well, and any of the other people who are really supportive of all the like builders and developers in our ecosystem. They really do make such a difference of like promoting onto our program. So just thank you so much. But also, as I said earlier on, we, looking at the kind of projects coming out of the global hackathons, and then creating this extra kind of support through an incubator phase. And, we'll be kind of like, putting that out into the world and making more noise about that in the coming weeks. But that is really just that support, like post hackathon, for those projects that might not be just ready for Accelerator just yet. But we can, provide like that technical, like support, and startup and all that, sessions that they might need, that starters might need, at that stage, pre-Accelerator. So just, I guess, kind of watch this space, and hold tight, and we get some more information for you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Joe. I appreciate that. So here's something I wanted to kind of pose to the 3 of you. How do you think that leaders, within existing blockchain orgs, how can we do a better job of highlighting these opportunities, making sure that we are recruiting, that we are adding women to our hiring pool, and that we are making these opportunities more visible to women and marginalized candidates? Like, how can we do a better job? I'd be curious if any of the 3 of you want to raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think first and foremost is us supporting each other, sharing or celebrating each other's success on LinkedIn, on X, sharing opportunities with each other. So when we pollinate opportunities, when we give each other recognitions, when we share resources, I think we're living, living the philosophy of really uplifting women and incorporating them into our day to day as part of our business lives in a way. I think we set our examples. Some things that I do is whenever I go to conferences, I try to order a women's only breakfast, connecting other women in my network to each other. When we're doing hiring, all things equal, I would always prefer to have a woman come on board. I think it's really being mindful of incorporating women, incorporating diversity into how we live and work, and really live that is very helpful, because once we set an example and we really live it, people see it, and I think that's what we emanate that, and we spread the positivity. I think that's how I like to see it and how I've been doing it.
I
Yep,
can go. I
that's
can go
so
next.
true. Go ahead, Sarah. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to follow on Sophia, there are a lot of initiatives out there that perhaps are a little bit underground. But for instance, as I mentioned before, I'm on the board of the Media Institute, and we have this amazing program to actually form the next generation of blockchain developers. And I was actually very happy to see that out of 32 students, 10 were women. Yes, 10 were women. There is definitely excitement from a lot of female leaders, just to actually jump and just change career, or just learn something different and start building in this space. But then I also see the downsides, because this course, for instance, lasts for 2 years, and at the moment I'm seeing a lot of women that unfortunately are not able to find a placement. So that is something that perhaps can be done a little bit more, perhaps, but I'm talking about, from an educational point of view, an institutional point of view, perhaps a lot of these schools could get in touch with ecosystems like yours, Autumn, like Algorand. And we know that we are working already on doing something like this for your upcoming event in Barcelona. But I would definitely like to see more Web3 players actually getting in touch with some of these schools, and getting in touch with them, and welcome some of these students, either for an internship, or just to give them a chance to actually develop something for them, and hire them as a consultant initially, or just give them a chance, really. That's what I would like to see more.
Yeah, I think that we need to make a really big effort and support of bringing in the kind of foundations of making sure there's more diversity earlier on, like in our funnel. So making sure that the boot camps are bringing in women into the boot camps, and then bringing them along on that journey. I think also makes a huge difference, because I think when they're in there and they see themselves benchmarked against other people who are participating, that it gives them confidence to move forward. But really just getting them in there, and again, and somebody mentioned there, making sure the accelerators do set aside like a percentage of those startups that they participate in the accelerators. I think putting those metrics on the accelerators as well is really, really important.
100%. Joe, I agree with you 100%. And it almost feels eternal. Like it almost seems just that we can never do enough. And I don't think that's actually the case. I think every little bit that we do, and every kind of light that we shine on an opportunity, does reach someone. And so listen, gang, I know that we are at time here. And I am so grateful for everyone that came to listen and to support this space today, hoping that lots more will get to listen as the days go on. Just wanted to thank everyone again for joining, and to Joanna and to Sarah and to Sophia for all of your amazing insights. I think what I'll do is put together a little tweet with some of our kind of key dates and registration open and close dates that are coming up, so that everyone has those fresh in their mind. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all on the trail at some point this year. Thanks again for joining, and just hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Autumn. Thanks, everyone.